I want to call the meeting to order. Wayne Sawchuk is present. Dan Coughlin is present. Lisa's present. And Paul Kearse is present. Take up the first item. Want to do the Cook Estate? Let's see if there's any new news.
Yep, we have Sean Hardy and Ally Babcock, I believe, on the meeting right now.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Paul.
Thank you.
Don't see you, but we hear you.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, great. So do we want to have Sean start and give us a little update?
Hi, good morning. Not much of an update, although, I believe the condo association has entered into discussions with the neighbor regarding an easement and have agreed in principle. I guess the attorneys are now working together to iron out those details. And until such time, we were told or instructed that they don't want us surveying on their property. So we're in a little bit of a holding pattern, but I've been back and forth a little bit with the surveyor, and I think he's gearing up to be ready to go when we get released to do that.
Do you have an idea of where you would enter and where you would exit, although you don't exactly know where the septic system is, I guess? Meaning, do you know the both sides, where you would be on the school side and where you'd be on the Cook side?
I think we're going to be as close to the road as we can be. They do have some trees and a retaining wall that we want to stay away from, but it's looking like they're asking us to go through that front yard as opposed to going through the back.
Mm-hmm.
Once we're through there, I think we'll probably have to stay out in front of the school as well. There's some wetlands in that back area. Would try to probably avoid that as best we could. That's up through the lawn in that area before we could dive into that back where the pump station is.
Do you know if the wall is on that runs for several hundred feet going past the school and everything? And I saw that there's only about 8 feet at the most between the wall and the pavement, maybe 6 feet. So I'm convinced that that's not a good spot to try to go down outside the wall. But I was curious if the wall was on private property or on the town land. No, private property of the town land.
Yeah, I don't know that we know for sure. Again, they were pretty specific that they do not want anyone on their property until the easement is, agreed to with the attorneys for whatever reason, but we certainly respect their request.
Right. I was just curious. I mean, it would seem like it would be on the assessors maps or something in terms of a line going down there separating the street from the private property. But
yeah, I always hesitate to follow that. I've been burned looking at assessors before, a taking or something that happened along the way and you get zinged. So it's happened to me enough times that I want to wait till the surveyor says so.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the next step is just to wait, I guess.
Yeah, hopefully it gets resolved or worked out here. Like I said, it's agreed in principle. It's my understanding. So it's, it's just paperwork has to now get put in place before we can actually proceed.
Okay.
And if I could just let you know that Jane could not make it today. She had something come up at the last minute. So she just wanted me to relay that she, what Sean said is absolutely the case. And she plans to follow up with the Haggies tomorrow. And we're moving toward that path as the sewer connection on our side. And we were also wondering, do you happen to have any more feedback from town council on whether or not this needs to go before town meeting?
So I'll step in with that one. So I have a meeting right after this one at 10:30 with the town manager, town council, and the town treasurer to talk about, really our main focus was financing, to find if there is a way to, get this financed with betterments or something like that. So I think we'll talk about all the legal aspects. I think it does need to go in front of town meeting, unfortunately, though, just because the way the sewer bylaw is written. But the important thing right now, I think, is to figure out a way for financing the project.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
It would be interesting as if this requires an addition, if it requires an addition to the sewer district, whether or not that the plans would indicate that it is all on private property, and then not touching the street. Would that be the case of it being in the street where the other people could connect onto it in the future? And I don't know, Dan, have you ever run by that? You're on
You're on
mute.
mute.
Yeah.
Okay. The only reason, obviously, wouldn't go before town meeting is if there's affordable portion of housing associated with it. I think that's the only way to avoid town meeting. In terms of it running down the street, if it's private, it's a different entity. If the town or the sewer commission assumes responsibility over that force main, which it sometimes can do if it's in a public way, then obviously it kind of opens it up for additional connections.
What if it's not in the public way? In other words, it's 10 feet off of it, let's say.
It really comes down to whether or not the sewer commission accepts responsibility for the maintenance of the force main. And I believe in this case, it's all planned to be a private force main for the development because that's what it solely serves, except for that one abutter. So, I mean, if it's a private force main, there's no rationale where someone would be forced or could force a connection.
Yeah, so we originally talked about this, Wayne, being an extension of the existing line from Deer Hill to their property, since it was all going to be on private property.
Right, I understand that.
Not a expansion or new district.
Right, but I'm just wondering, this is like sort of bringing it up sort of a little bit in the first time, is the Cook Estate going to be responsible for this line basically forever? Or, is the town? And I think that there's a lot of reasons for having the town take it over, because if there's an emergency or something, they can mobilize and they can do something immediately. If it's private, you never know,
So we talked about this being equivalent to what we did at CJC, where the expenses are 100% of Cook Estate to have the line put in, and then it's conveyed to the town after its completion.
Well, that would be, I think, different than what it might be, what's proposed. And based on what Dan said, if it's private, then it stays private and the private person would have to take care of it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes down to funding as well. Pam's talking about potential for funding in some fashion for a betterment. If that's the case, that it kind of implies this is going to be a town force main. But, you have to keep in mind that needs to be decided fairly soon, because the easement's going to be written up in a certain way going across the abutter's property. And if Cook acquires that easement and the town wants to ultimately take this over, then the easement must be transferable as well to the town. So, we're not standard. I don't know what the width is and everything, but our standard easements are fairly wide for town purposes, so we can get, equipment in there to maintain them.
And
Yeah,
there's a lot
Sean, Sean, do you have anything sketched up for if you, assuming that the abutter has the approval and you go through the front yard, do you have anything sketched up to where you think that what the system may look like?
Well, I mean, in discussions with them, just the assumption is, it's 27 units. It's not going to be a very large pipe. It's probably, 3-4 inch is all. Figuring the easement would be probably 15 feet wide just to be able to get in there and maneuver around is what we had talked about.
Okay.
I don't know if this clouds the issue of whether the town, these people, and I can't speak for them, but I'm just sitting here, I haven't been on the conversation with them and how, they're won't even let us on their property until such time the easement is in place. I'm a little concerned if the town was opening up the ability for other people to access that line through their yard. I don't know if that would, poison this a little bit.
Yeah, we already sought counsel's advice on that because, and we talked to Brian Joyce about that, because it's staying on private property and it's extension of the Dare Hill line, it wouldn't be open to other people.
Okay.
My only concern is that if it's going to be conveyed to the town, we need to know what it is we're going to have. And you had stated that on the 4 sites that are currently failing, you were going to run through those systems and then force main it down from one area down to the Dare Hill, right?
Yeah, so right now, there's one one group of homes that goes gravity to one of the systems. And then the 3 other are all already have E1 systems outside their homes and they have force mains. So
Okay.
I would take the one that is gravity and size a pump chamber for that and exit that with a force main. And along the way, the other force mains can be intercepted at a convenient spot where they cross. And they would also feed that force main. And
Okay,
then,
so you're talking about 4 primary force mains?
no, one force main and
One?
so one leaves the gravity or collects the gravity system and initiates at the bottom of the hill. And then as the other ones, as we go by the other ones, they can tap into that single force main, and then they will feed that as well. And then just that one pipe leaves the Cook Estate and would go through the easement through the front yard of the adjacent property, where they also would have a pump that would feed into that same force main. And just that one pipe would go up and discharge into the existing pump station.
I think that the easement, if we have a suggestion and in talking to the attorneys and stuff like that, I recommend that it's 20 feet wide. And it seems to me if I was the resident, I'd almost want it in the town's name because there'd be more responsibility and sort of maybe, something more assuring than having it with the condo association, but just.
I agree if that's for maintenance. My fear was if there's other people that could be tying in. I know how hesitant they were, but if you're saying that's not an option or a possibility, then I think that helps. And the fact you're right, that if something goes wrong, the town as DPW, and you guys all do, having had experience with DPW, I always make the joke, Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, and it's 11:30 at night and snowing and who's going to work? It's, you guys. So that probably leaves a level of comfort to the homeowner in case something goes wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if it's on private property, that's a bit of an insulation, but if you have an easement that the town owns and that abuts or directly touches the right of way so that the town could get to that force main, I think some of your protections are going to go away in terms of preventing people from tying in. The only thing you'd have to prevent that would be maybe the capacity of the pipeline. But nowadays you can always squeeze one or two more in. I think the original premise was that this was going to be a private force main maintained by Cook, owned and maintained by Cook. At least that was my concept of what it was going to be. And in terms of maintenance, you can do it, just have an agreement with Cook Estates, where if an emergency situation occurs and the town needs to mobilize crews to remedy a break or something like that, that there would be a mechanism for back charging Cook for that work. And that gives the homeowner some protections as far as that it's going to be addressed in a timely manner.
But getting back to the idea of any financing and stuff, it would seem that financing would be a lot easier if the town is involved versus a private person, meaning they're not going to be able to get assistance from the town for financing if they're private, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, one mechanism is similar to what you did with CJC. You can do a development agreement and basically allow them to pay your fees at least over time. They'd still have to come up with the construction fees themselves, but the connection fee may be something that you could potentially defer with a connection agreement.
Yeah, we talked about this several months ago about having it similar. The only question then we have really is if because it's a condo association, those pumping stations are, I don't know, would they be considered like we do with the grinder pumps where they own them, they have to maintain them as an association?
That would be my recommendation. The only thing that would really, I mean, if there's any breaks on their own properties, I'm assuming they would address it. If there's a break, let's say within the easement or on the school property, I'm just recommending that maybe the town be able to go in there and make an immediate repair and then backcharge Cook Estates. So if that's the case, though, the easement does have to have the rights to go on the property to maintain that pipeline.
Well, an easement doesn't specify who has the right? It just an easement means that it can be done on that line within 15 feet, right?
No, typically it's awarded to the person who's party to the easement. So that would be Cook Estates.
So it would be to a specific group?
Yeah, so the butter would grant it to Cook Estates for the construction, operation, and maintenance of that.
Okay.
But, I'm just saying, so there's no conflict down the road, there should be language where, some authority is given either automatically to the town by Cook Estates for operating within that easement. There's some reimbursement or bill back provision. So I think there's still a need for some type of agreement with Cook Estates if that is maintained as a private force main.
May I ask a question, Dan?
Sure, Pam.
Okay, so the maintenance that would be required if it were private, is that a yearly maintenance type of situation, or how often does that happen, and what kind of costs are associated with that?
Yeah, from a practical base, the maintenance of a force main is really negligible. The only time it really kicks in is if a valve should break or leak, or a pipeline should break or leak. So really, I mean, it could be there for 20 years without any maintenance being provided or needed on the force main.
Hmm.
It's the pumping units on the private properties or the, Cook Estate units that would require that maintenance.
I see. If the easement were to have some sort of town maintenance agreement attached to it, would that then have to go before town meeting as well? I would assume so.
Yes, I would think, well, easements have to be approved. Well, it's kind of a gray area. The sewer commission, I think, enabling legislation allows them to accept easements, but it's always been brought before the selectmen for approval.
Without having to go before ATM?
When it goes before the selectmen, yes, as a package, they are brought to town meeting for approval. So there may be, in this case, would be a single easement, I guess, across the abutter. And if the town were to be party to that easement and accept some responsibility in that easement, I would probably say that easement would have to go before town meeting. I would do it a different way, though. I wouldn't make the town a party in the easement itself. I mean, that should be made known to the abutter, but what it would be is, the easement would say something like Cook Estates or a representative or a designee of Cook Estates may enter the property for, operation, maintenance, or emergency response.
Right,
And-
and I was just about to equate that to a situation that I have that is in concept similar to this. I have a cottage at the beach, and the seawall runs across the front of all of our properties. And the town has a maintenance agreement with each of the oceanfront homeowners. We've all signed an easement off to them that they can pass 10 feet on either side of the wall to do maintenance. And we signed off on that, and the town collected those and recorded them. And any maintenance that is provided by the town comes out of the DPW budget. So none of that went before town meeting, and I'm just wondering if we could structure ours in some sort of similar way to bypass that.
Yeah, and my recommendation would be to avoid the town being a party in the easement. If it's solely between Cook and the abutter, then the town's not a party to that. There's no inference that the town, owns or operates or maintains or does anything within that. So there's no potential dispute down the road that someone can connect to it.
Yeah, well, we can-
And then separately in an agreement with Cook Estates, Cook Estates would agree that in emergency situations, the town could respond to breaks and repairs and bill back Cook for that. And I think that would be sufficient. And that agreement per se doesn't necessarily have to go before town meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah, we certainly will get the opinion of our counsel, Greg, on that, to see what his thoughts are.
I'm just wondering if this does go before town meeting to connect, for the ability to connect, and it gets voted down. Have we thought about what that might mean? And what would happen as far as, us having that letter from the Board of Health, for the town telling us that this is a kind of a problem for the town water supply. I'm a little concerned that we might get stuck in the middle of something like that, because obviously the being able to connect to sewer is kind of a sensitive subject, it seems, with a lot of people in town. There's a lot of people that would like to be on it. So do we have sort of a plan B?
So I asked Greg Corbo about that because I was worried too. It's not 100%, even though it seems like it should be. And there is a mechanism to do it through the legislature. I mean, obviously that doesn't sound like it'd be something to be quick and easy, but there is a way to do it.
Okay, thank
There
you.
may also be a mechanism if the CAM were to go to DEP, and DEP could potentially order a connection.
I can do that and then go on to something else and show you.
Okay.
Like
I'm not overly concerned. I think that, given the emergency decree by the health department, that there aren't really many options, and we do have the capacity to handle it. So I don't see that there'd be enough opposition to vote it down. And I'm not sure if this is a majority vote or a 2/3 majority vote. I would think it's just a majority.
Okay.
So,
Okay, thank you.
He's a newbie. I don't think he's unless he.
Yeah, I mean, if there's money involved, it may change, I believe, right? If for some reason the town's funding it in some fashion, then you may need 2/3.
yeah, I don't think so, Dan. All we're providing is a payment plan to that extent.
Okay.
We're not using taxpayer money and not being recuperated. It's the Cook Estate's paying for the facility put in, so.
Yeah, Pam mentioned
Yeah, yeah.
that entailed.
Any other discussion? Okay. Thank you for that.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Wayne, I do have one last question. Do we need to go before the school board to get permission? Has that been decided on?
Pam, do
They-
you have any comments?
Lisa, do you have an update? I know Brian was going before them.
Yeah, he hasn't.
So at the last, oh, sorry, Paul.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
At the last meeting, Brian said that he was going to wait for some kind of drawing or plans on how they're going to connect and then to be presented to the school commission or the school board.
Okay,
I do think that's a little further down the road. I think maybe they should be approached early, just in case.
Well, they were already approached and
Okay,
they didn't really, there really wasn't anything. They said that they would get back to them, but I'll touch base with Brian later on this afternoon.
yeah, where Sean's waiting for an easement to be executed before he goes on to do additional work. We're moving it down the road a little bit.
Understood. Yeah, understood.
so just so that we can be clear about the parameters of the easement, because we have something that is in the works now between the attorneys. If we're adding other conditions to this easement, I think, I mean, should we be clear on what that is now so that we can relay that to the attorneys? I mean, do you
I would wait. I think we should get that question answered by Greg, our attorney on that.
Okay.
And let him give us the language, because it could be something as simple as Cook Estates and its representatives to include the municipality of Cohasset. You know, it could be as simple as that.
Okay, so should we put our attorneys on hold then for a week until you get that answer? Or should we draft it and just add that later? It's just that it may make a difference to the Haggies. I don't know. I don't know if it would. I would hope that it doesn't, but
Yeah.
I just
Well,
feel like we should go before them with the full plan so that, we want there to be a very high level of trust with them and us
Okay.
from the beginning. And so, I don't think that we want to be trying to add things and,
Okay.
so
So,
do that after.
so what I'll do is I'll contact the attorney this afternoon. I'll work with Lisa to get that question answered and get back to you as soon as we can.
Okay, that would be wonderful. Thank you very
Okay.
much. And then Lisa, would you be emailing Jane on that or on the results of that?
Yes, yep, we can, as we get information, I can email Jane.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you, everyone.
The only thing about the easement, and I don't know, is the intention is to hook up the house of the private landowner. But is there, do you have the ability to grant that to them rather than us granting it to them? Which would only make it so that we'd be involved at that, for that one reason.
I'm not sure I fully understand.
You're going to seek an easement to go through their property from one side to the other with the force main. But part of that easement negotiation is to connect the house whose property it is onto that main. But
Right.
my question is that something a private person can grant to someone else rather than the town getting involved? Meaning they're not.
You're saying Cook's allowing him to hook up rather than the town allowing him to hook up.
Yeah, but so that's someone who technically doesn't have a problem that is being hooked up outside of the box here.
Right, that's a very good point. So maybe they need to separately file an application with you. And then as far as the cost of them hooking up, that's the agreement that we're making with them is to
Yeah, to be reimbursed.
work on the financing of that. But as far as permission to hook up, that's not something that Cook can grant. You're absolutely right. I don't think anybody discussed that yet.
I mean, ultimately, the sewer commission is going to make a decision and take a vote to accept the route, the easement, or, the route through the easement and the connection of that other house. So I don't think you have to take a vote at this point in time. They're still negotiating the easement. Once the easement's in place, the sewer commission can take a vote to also connect that property in line with their plans.
My only thing is that the attorneys for the cook and for the owner are going to be negotiating something that is a little outside of their realm, because one is going to give permission to the owner to be, and probably say, we're going to cover the cost of it to be in there. And so that may very well, if it's a separate agreement, that might be good, rather than just the easement going across. But it's going to be tied in with the easement, because that's their compensation for.
Yeah, I mean, it may be as simple as just saying subject to the approval of the local sewer commission.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'll ask Greg
Okay.
the question.
Okay. All right, next, everything else? All right, next item. Do we want to take the 3A Beechwood, or the 3A? No, that was something different. Oh, the sleeves across, okay. 3A and Beechwood Street.
Are we skipping budget capital?
I was skipping the budget, but, and
Okay.
I guess I can do budget. We'll just do the budget then, because I don't want to get off track here. I met with Lisa this past week, and we went over some items. So you should have, Paul, and I don't know if Dan has a copy of it or anything, what our proposed budget is for 2023. And there's only a few items that are sort of being adjusted. And you'll see on the thing that we changed just a couple of minor items. So I'm thinking that with this, we're ready to go.
Okay, yeah, I read through the adjustments and the markup on it.
And do you have any questions on it in terms of any items?
I really didn't. I know that I met with Lisa and Don Piat back in December to kind of review where we are on it. My only concern was that, when we had that 5-year capital budget plan, we had things for this year and next year in that capital budget. So I just wanted to make sure that what was ever on FY23, if we're not going to exercise that capital expense, then we don't need to budget for it. So.
Right. Now, in that, just about everything is done or is going to be done for that fiscal year. So we're ahead. But all the money has already been set aside.
Okay.
And so there were just a couple of items like, the barn doors and the plant.
Yeah.
To get someone to do it, but that there's $50,000 that's in the account to pay for that. And all the other items are similarly funded. And we had an overage of our $80,000 account for miscellaneous things of $13,000, primarily because of a break in the main that money came out of. So we handled that okay. And so I think we're fine.
The only thing I looked at was the Wood and Current contract. You have it escalated, or actually, the original text was FY22 and FY23 were the same for 710 for
And then
budgeted items.
And then
But I mean, if you look at the CPI and the increases that we'll probably realize next September, that could be closer to maybe 760 or so.
And Lisa, what was our final number? 740.
So yeah, we had 740 because I did talk to Rob, as Wayne mentioned, we talked to Rob Scott prior to this. And I asked him what to give me an estimate of the escalator for year 5, and he said 3.5% would be safe. So that's what I did, which came out to be $656,894. And add to that the 80,000 came out to the 80,000 was the
That fund that we have.
Yeah,
right.
I'm showing it adjusted to 740 from
Yeah.
710.
Correct.
Yeah,
What I-
yes, so add,
Yeah.
yeah, because add the 80 and then we gave a little buffer there, so
Okay,
came up with
Lisa-
740,
Did you say 3.5%?
3.5%.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. I mean, this September one was 4%, which is what he applied here. But we're
Yeah.
already up to about 6.3 on that index. So we're assuming basically inflation is going to come down by next September, and I'm not really sure if that's accurate.
One of the things in this, which was sort of surprising to me, is that half of their bill is for one fiscal year, the other half is for the new fiscal year, meaning the contract goes from January to January 1st to December 31st, but our fiscal year goes from July, of course, to June. And so their contract is like the certain charges are in it for half of the year, and then the other charges are in it for the remainder of the year. So when you look at this, it was, let's see, Lisa, go on into those numbers as we took it out.
I'm sorry,
In terms of how that this is representing inflation for half of a year, that's probably going to be adjusted later on.
well, is there a cap on inflation adjustments in the contract? Is it capped at 2.5, or is there a floor? I mean, what's in the contract? Because we can certainly, get updates quarterly, or if not, every 6 months from them, and then we go to town meeting in the fall, make our adjustments to the budget. But I don't see if there's an endless adjustment to inflation in the contract.
I don't have a copy of the contract, but I do know that they're using the CPI for the Northeast Boston area as of September of each year.
Okay, so what was it last September?
4%. And that's the number they're using to escalate.
Yeah.
But I'm
right.
saying that CPI index right now is about 6.3.
Right, but when do they execute based on the CPI? Is it once a year or twice a year?
I believe it's once a year, but again, I don't have a copy of the contract.
I believe
So it's
it's
one-
once a
it's-
year and it starts in January.
Okay, so they would have put the increase already in this January, 2 months ago, last month. Right? In January, they would have hit us up with the price increase based on the CPI.
Correct. And
Right,
they
so
did.
that's locked in for the next 12 months.
Yes,
Okay, so we already have the price adjustment and we're estimating 740. So the next price adjustment would come in January of next year, which would affect 6 months at the end of FY '23.
Right, they'd use the September CPI for Boston
Okay,
and then make an adjustment so that they can bill in January appropriately.
yeah, so the question is, what was the adjustment in January of 2021 versus the adjustment in 2022? Did it go up 2% or 4%?
It looks like, if you look at their second page of that, or the letter from Woodin and Curran, they have it year 1, 2, 3, 4, and they have the base and they have the percentages that are there. So the first one was a base year, the next one was 1.1%, the next one was 0.6%. Now it's 4%. And the question is, where is inflation next September for that CPI, and what's that CPI going to be?
If you knew that, then you'd be the economist of the year. But right now, so we went up a 1.5, whatever, from last year, and now we went up to 4. So we went up about maybe 2.5 from one year to the other. So
Actually, 4.6.
2.6,
3.4, sorry,
okay, yeah. So
increase.
that's the increase. The only thing we can estimate is a similar increase of say 3.5% for the last 6 months of FY '23, which I think is kind of built into the 740 number already.
Right, but then if you add 3.5 onto the current one, that's pretty high. If you add it on to the September one, it's still 7.5 or 7.6, whatever,
Yeah,
which is high.
right, but it
Yeah.
starts from the base though, right? So they don't keep adding on top of inflation from prior years. They go from the base of what the rate of inflation is. So I think we're fine. I don't,
Okay. I'm
yeah,
just saying the current rate is 6.3, you know, and what they're projecting with 3.5 is that's going to go down over the next 6 months.
right. And that's fine because the rate of inflation will be calculated in January of 2023.
But they calculate it each month and they use the September one.
September 1 of 22.
So, so it's September 1 of 22, they're going to do it. Okay. Yeah, I'm comfortable with where it is. I don't know if we want to play the game of chasing inflation rates to adjust the budget. Don, I don't know how you feel. about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think, Paul, what you were trying to say, I mean, we're already locked in for the first half of the fiscal year with the current inflation rate. So the increase would only be for another 6 months, which we can make any necessary adjustments
Yeah.
if it was significant enough to do so. And again, with having 3, 4, 5 grand of a bit of a buffer in there too,
Yeah.
kind of helps it out. So
Yeah.
I think where you're at is fine. That's reasonable.
Yeah, I think the numbers are okay now. It's just, that was for a projection for the FY23.
But I do just have, I just looked at the markup of the budget that we had gone through, and so I updated my worksheet to include those, and I increased the indirect cost number by the $5,000 that it went up. Clerical assistance I kept flat because it looks like I got to do a little digging. If anything, that might be a 2% for a COLA, but so it looks like the two changes on the revenue side you guys made was to connection fees and the permits and licenses, which licenses and permits going from 3 to 10 grand, fine, not a big deal. That's fine. 75,000 for the connection fees though was based on 2 connections. My initial 75,000 that I had in the worksheet was based on 2 connections. Now it's just a flat 100 grand. I think we should base it off of something. So Paul and I talked when he first came on the board, you know, how did we get the 80 grand budget in 2022? No idea. John Beck used to just throw in an 80 grand number and it wasn't worth the argument, right? So we assumed 75,000 based on 2 full EDU connections. So if we're going to say there's 3, we should.
So what's in that that connection fee? I think, you know, obviously it would be CJC's connection fee that would be coming in FY23. And I suspect in FY23 we would get the Cook Estate connection fee. Those would be the 2 largest ones. There's nothing else smaller, you know, outside of the beer garden is the only thing we had on the agenda to be connected this year, or let's say in the next, you know, 3 or 4 months, but that's in this budget, not next year's budget.
What's happening is this past year is no exception, is in the building permits, if someone is adding on just a single bedroom, we're going ahead and charging them 25% of a connection fee for adding that additional bedroom. And so it's not 2 full connections. It was like 2 full and 2 half or 2 quarters, you know, in terms of that, just recognizing that that number isn't just for a full connection. That's why it was
That's where the 80
$700,000.
came from, yeah. Okay.
So
The
that's
question-
when you're assuming the 100 grand. So again, I don't want to be the person standing there in front of the select board when we do a joint meeting and they ask, well, where'd the 100 grand come up from? You know, like I was talking to Paul last year, I don't want to say, I don't know again. So can we at
Yeah,
least make it based on an assumption, 2 full connections and 2 halves, or I don't know. I know not making a big deal out of something small here, but
Yeah, it's-
based on something so we can have an actual answer.
Well, I can tell you, I would say it's based on the CJC at minimum. And the question we're going to have from there is, are you going to recognize the revenue at once and collect it over 20 years?
No, oh no, we're in a cash business here. We are
Okay.
cash, we do not
Okay.
recognize 1.3 million. That would never let us do that.
Okay. Okay. So you're not on an accrual basis, you're on a cash basis?
So for financial statements, yeah, I mean, but
Okay.
yes, this
Okay.
development agreement, no, we're gonna be getting
Okay.
that money in year over year. Now, if you are gonna go that route of saying that you're gonna budget that, I
That's
don't think-
65,000. That's 65,000 then.
so I think we need to think more about that instead of just running that in these operations. I mean, to connect the annual fee, to me, I think we should be putting that towards something, towards capital, not just letting it float into the operating budget.
Okay.
So
I don't
again,
disagree. Yeah, I
So-
don't disagree with that. I just, we don't have any, the revenue we're receiving from it is not offsetting any capital expenses, so we can certainly put it into,
So I guess in my mind, like that connection fee, I wasn't even thinking of any connections related to any development agreements. To me, that was, I think of that to a connection fee as brand new connections in town year over year that, again, is a small, that's why we usually budget just 2, or, I mean, I guess you could go 3 if you wanted to do that, but if we're gonna have a recurring payment from Stasco, from that property, we
Yeah.
should budget that separately. And
Okay.
I would go as far as not to even do it until we get the first year's payment. Because
okay,
when are we gonna get the first year's payment?
it's going to be in fiscal 23.
And we're 100% sure on that.
Yes.
With him, no.
I like being absolute on something like, so again, I still haven't even seen, I know I sent out, I think we put together a repayment schedule. I know I put one together. I think I sent it to you folks. If not, I can send it.
Okay.
So I don't even have anything signed that we know exactly what he's gonna pay us year over year. So,
Yeah. So when I talk to Greg, I'll ask him about that because Greg was working out the expense payments first, and then the privilege and hookup fee, which is going to be paid over 20 years, we have to come up with an amortization schedule, right? And send it to him.
yeah, so I created one. I'll send that to you.
Okay.
No need for him to bill us for something.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Okay, so I would agree with doing that separate. So based on what Wayne is saying, your 75,000 was two 4-bedroom homes being connected, and then the additional 25,000 would be a partial connection on an existing property. Is that what you're saying, Wayne?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's the answer to your question.
Easy enough to explain. Perfect.
Okay. Yep. So that's what
partial-
we're budgeting for, and this is basically on new residential properties or existing residential properties. And then
Okay.
we'll keep the commercial properties such as the Cook Estate and the CJC separate.
Yeah, honestly, I mean,
Okay.
until we get everything really settled with that property, yeah,
Okay.
I have no problem. I think looking when we get to the fiscal 24 budget cycle, we have a line item. Once everything's agreed, we get the first year, we're on a cycle, then yeah, we have a line item for agreement or
Okay.
I forget. We'll come up with the line item to identify that
Sure, yeah,
separately.
yeah.
But then that offsetting expense, I think we really plan on. Well, yeah, we call it development agreement payments. I don't know,
Okay.
but then we plan on how we're going to actually use that money instead of just. We shouldn't just use that as we need another $70,000 in the operating budget. We're going to just use that payment to fund. But again, we can talk about that more. To me, these development agreements and connection fees are really to help pay for capital expenses.
Yeah. So So we submit to capital budget, right? There are 5-year plans, so we can just take a look at the 5-year plan and see what's in that.
Okay.
What was I gonna say? Sorry, disregard it.
Looks like Lisa's
I
maybe
guess
wanting
that
to
had
ask
to do
a
with the
question.
Cook Estate was going to be another one of those. Oh, my comment was going to be, we're also gaining 27 new customers that represent a significant amount of money for the people like the Cook Estate that are going to be a reasonable amount of revenue. I don't know how many thousands of dollars, but whereas it's been pretty static as it were pretty much been built out and not had any major extension. That'll also happen with Stasco because every one of his tenants are going to be an individual customer, so that the
Mm.
20 apartments will be 20 units, and he has another, I think, somewhere around 35 altogether. All the stores are separately metered and stuff. And that, so that'll be a new customer account for the sewer department.
Yeah, so I don't know what the, the 1.5 that we show in the budget for 22 is equal to 23 as far as sewer usage charges. So you're saying that we're going to hook up 27 units times, 2 EDUs per unit or something like that. And same thing with the 22 units, let's say, over at CJC. So we're looking at, I don't know, something like 50 units total at 2.5 EDUs each. Is that what you're suggesting?
Not the EDUs at all. I'm talking about now the physical flows going into the plant and the,
Right.
and the
But
minimum.
I'm just asking, so how do you calculate what the revenue is? It's based off EDUs, right?
No.
No?
Which is kind of why I'm keeping that flat for now.
Yeah. Why
I
you're
mean-
keeping it the same?
So only because we just increased the rate last year for this fiscal year.
Yeah.
And again, because the usage is based on water use, we're behind, we're a bit behind the 8 ball on usage charges collected and billed for this cycle.
Okay.
So I kept it flat only because I'm interested to see what another year's worth for fiscal 22 will do before we really start making. And again, to Wayne's point and to your point, yeah, we have these new buildings and developments coming in, but we just don't. If we had another wet summer, we could be behind again in commitment. So I think I sent you the January financials, and if I didn't, I'll send them to you right now. But user charges collected through January 31st, we were only at 52%, which not terribly behind.
Yeah.
But still behind after we just increased the per 100 cubic foot flow rate 10%. So again, that's up to your discretion if you really want to increase that to basically to cover the budget. Because right now, based on adding the 2 items that I'm seeing in here, the 740,000, and it looks like the estimate for electricity was also bumped up to 300. Based on factoring those 2 things in, and again, I added in the 100,000 for connections and increased to 10 for sewer permits. We are at a deficit of about 45,000. So to balance, we still need to come up with what we're going to do for the 45,000.
There's one item in there, the Xenon GE contract, service contract.
Yeah.
We're carrying 15 grand. I don't think we've actually activated that for a couple of years. So I don't think
So that
that's.
was one of my questions. So I thought they came out every year because I saw that we didn't spend any money, I think last year.
Yeah,
And
I don't
maybe
think,
not since 2020.
I think Woodard and Curran was of the opinion that it wasn't worth the value. And at that point, I don't think we've renewed it for several years. It's now basically Suez as well, so.
Okay, so we should double check with Woodard on that, because the other item I was gonna mention is that we budget 30 grand for emergency repairs to the collection system. And in
Yeah.
the last 3 fiscal years, we've only spent between 2,000 and 7,000. Now, I'm wondering, are some of those expenses being covered in the 80,000?
They were
Okay.
last year.
So again, those are 2 items right there that would basically balance the budget or come darn close to it. But
Or
I-
even if you cut the 30 in half, or made it equivalent to what the average was over the 3 years that it actually occurred. There seemed to be a spike in repair there on 2020, but if you take out the 15 and take out 15 on the emergency side, that's 30 there. You're just going to come up with another 15, right?
Yeah, which again, I'd be happy to just tack that 15 onto user charges as, again, we
Yeah.
know we're gonna have some people connecting, more flow. I think for initial discussion purposes, I kept it
Yeah.
flat so that we could be conservative for
Okay,
what just happened so far to date in this current year. But yeah, adding whatever that difference. So let's just do that. So if I zeroed out Xenon and I brought down, so over the last 3 years for the collection, we haven't even hit 10 grand. So if I put $10,000 in there, sorry about that noise. So it's about $10,000 that I'd have to essentially plug to user charges, which I think is reasonable.
yeah, yeah,
I think is reasonable based on what we just talked about. And
yeah, we're looking at a 1% increase, which would give you the 15 grand anyway in the user fee, right? And that could be adjusted in the fall town meeting of 23. I mean, 23's fall town meeting budget, right? So it's 2022, October, November.
Yeah,
CJC should be online by then and Cook would be underway, I would think.
yeah, so I think making those couple of changes, I can update this and send this out to you guys
Okay.
right after this so that I did email.
Okay, so, yeah, so the net is, there's no deficit, so now we're at 0.
Yep, so now we'll be at 0.
Okay. That makes sense.
And interestingly, Dan, what was the gallonage for the Cook Estates for that they're going to be sending to us? Remember what it was? 10,000?
Yeah, I mean, I think the rough estimate was around 18 to 21, but on an average day basis, what you'd be looking at, and that's probably going to be about half that value. So I'd say conservatively, if you said 8,000 gallons a day.
Okay.
No,
So-
this is gonna be, I apologize for, this is gonna sound like a dumb question, but if we base our billings off of water billing usage, and
Yeah.
so would Cook Estates only be hooking up to us for, are they already hooked up to water? Are they part of our water system, or are they on a well?
No, they're water. They have water.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, but where's it from? Is it town or is it,
Town water.
it is, okay.
Okay.
I guess the problem with the flows is that the way they're doing it now, they're producing more flow because of I basically coming in. And so we don't, I guess if we looked at the water meters, and I don't know if that was done yet, to see what the flows through the water meters are, but I'm not sure what they have for outside sprinklers, if the individual units have them or not. I know in some places like Wheelwright Farm, they got rid of the outside watering.
Yeah, so they may have separate meters, you think, for
Yeah.
outside?
But I don't know.
I can check with Jane on that to see if there's any outside sprinklers so that we can at least get an estimate of their sewer flow based on their water meter.
And what is it, 75% of the water bill?
No, it's 100. It's like straight, it's whatever their water bill is, what their sewer bill is.
Yeah, I think they had multiple irrigation systems up there, and my guess is they probably have a separate meter for the irrigation. But and then everyone has their individual meters for the
But
units.
back to the emergency repairs for the collection system. I mean, even though we're reducing that, it would be nice to know what comes out of that. And like
Well,
someone is,
You will, because if it comes out of the $80,000 initially, you saw that whole list of what the $80,000 represented. And so
yeah,
for instance, there were invoices from Rosano Davis in there for repairs. And then there was, the people taking the solids out, and whatever was in there was all itemized. So we can find out, but we're certainly, we know that it's, $3,000 to $7,000 a year. We have not had anything really major for 4 or 5 years where we had one that we ended up having negotiating the bill and stuff because it was like $35,000 or $40,000 initially, and I think they dropped it down to $15,000 on Jerusalem Road. Might
So
not-
the only other thing that may change in the budget, because we had moved things around, but are we still going to be billed 85,000 from Hull, the contracted services?
No, well, we don't,
That's still in the budget for 85,000 in 23. I know that looks like it vacillated the last couple of years. So if things changed over there, we wouldn't get the 85. Maybe it is 60,000 instead of 85, and they'd pick up your other 15 there.
Mhm.
That may even go up though, too, because they have an increase pretty much every year.
Yeah, but the 85 is only expended 21 through half the year.
Yeah, but sometimes, so that was as of 1/31, depending on the timing of their billing.
Billing, okay.
Because a lot of the times we wait till the very end of the year and they don't get us a bill.
Okay,
We
think it just
definitely have
went
issues
through.
with timing with them.
okay.
Yeah, I think I just paid the January invoice. I just put that through, so that's not included in
Got
that
it.
21
is
Okay.
that billed quarterly?
quarterly, yes.
How much was the January invoice, Lisa?
Quarterly, yeah.
I can't remember, Dan. Actually, I can look it up. I'm tied into my office here, so give me a moment and I'll get that.
Just one other question too. I know I brought this up when we met Wayne. The 80 grand, the last couple of years that we talked to Rob Scott and them, they kind of thought that it was a bit on the low end for the town of our size and our operation. Did we revisit that? Did we talk to them about how reasonable that number is and if that's allowing them to do what they really need to do?
Is that fungible or is that fixed in the contract?
No, it lists, it's really like,
Reimbursement account.
yeah, reimbursement. So,
Right. Well, again, I know one of the things at least we're gonna look into is what we got for overage, so we could really see, is 80 grand a real number? Again, maybe it was an offhanded conversation I had with them, but it didn't seem like 80,000 was really a good amount of money.
I think if it was more, they spend it. Sometimes I think maybe
So, right, I guess
You
it
don't-
leads into the capital conversation, where are we with an actual capital plan? So one thing you guys really need to be prepared for is for the select board to ask, and I don't want to be a jerk and say, I don't know of a capital plan, but I will have to do that if we don't know where we're at with an actual capital plan that identifies when things should or need to be done. And if we've done it, great, but a week or so ago, we didn't have that yet. So I think that we just got to be mindful when we talk to the various boards that either it's a work in progress or we just haven't gotten there yet.
and speaking with Scott and stuff the other day, we basically went over the upgrades to the Tupelo Road pump station. And there was a couple of reports that were done that indicated, what needed to be done, essentially to all of our pump stations. And I think there's like 12 of them or something. And what made that cost, because they're all 20 years or older. And in a 20-year period, working every single day or, the way they're going, is they tend to have just been worked on piecemeal versus going in. And on the Tupelo Road one, we made an agreement to have them do $37,000 worth of work to basically refurbish the pump station. So it's going to involve 2 new pumps, putting everything on the SCADA system, which I didn't realize a lot of the stuff isn't on the SCADA system that they've done. Fix all the electronics to make it so that everything is in today's condition. And I thought, that's not too bad. So in the budget, it was a number of, I think, $15,000 or something, or $25,000. And then the following year, it was either 23 or 24 in this column that I was looking at, they had $150,000 in there, and then they dropped it back down again. So I was assuming that they looked at this and, thought that it was really time to look at every one, prioritize which one needs the work, and then to actually get those done, on a continuous basis. It was sort of like, we put them in and we just left them. And now, and by the way, we calculated that of the $37,000 that, and that's on a flow of like 35,000 gallons, that the amount that Stasco is going to be putting into that, and the agreement that he should be paying about 40% of the $37,000 as for the things that we're doing to take the additional flow in that pump station. So that sort of turned the light on a little bit about other things that may or should get done, including some of the collection. We want to use more of the I&I information and spend that money this coming year on certain projects that they've now discovered, because they put 3 meters in the collection system, that the marsh, and I don't even know if Dan knows this, is getting the most I&I coming into the system. So that's one that it's going to be important. And then I raised the question of, should we try to get anything we could out of the marsh if they continually be a problem, and maybe run them down Elm Street while they've got some grant money and that type of thing. And that may just be too late to try to get in on that, but it's something to think about. So we do need to prioritize some of the things we just discussed. Everything that we're doing on the plan for next year is already funded with the different amounts that we've set aside, like the doors or the I&I and things like that.
Okay.
But the following years, we're going to need to really, we need to go into the future.
Yeah. So for 23, it sounds like, from what I remember, there was a grit screw that we went to cap. So like, we just need to make sure that by the time we're going to town meeting, we have exactly what we need for 23. If it's small in money, it sounds like it's going to be 100 grand or less. Just use retained earnings. I mean,
right.
No problem. Again, when we talked, my concern was, what if we went through this whole process again? I don't know what pump stations cost, but we found out that pump stations, sewer mains, and other things, it was $500,000 a year over the next 10 years that we had to do all these upgrades. That's not retained earnings. Well, we can't fund that retained earnings. We need to go back and say, hey, we need to increase our rates to cover these costs. But it sounds like, based on some more conversations you've had, it's not going to be $500,000 a year. It's going to be a smaller amount. So for 23, I think we're good, but still, we'll just continue to work on that plan so that we have a good listing of things that need to be done. And I'd really be interested to see in the big ticket items, like when they're due to be done. So if a water main or if a sewer main is supposed to be done, how many years is a sewer main normally good for? Is it 50 years, 80? Again, what's practice to say what's the useful life? And if we're getting near it, we should have those on the list.
Yeah, in terms of the PVC sewers that we have, it could be 80 years, 100 years. But we do have a lot of clay, though, the original system, and that's overdue for some major repairs.
So those are things that we need on the list then. Like, we need to have those on the list. If they're close or they're over the useful life, again, we know useful life can be extended past what the industry norm is, but we need to know which ones are at the useful life and that pose the most risk. And then do we really need to start planning some significant work on these and try to put some estimated dollar values in what fiscal years those would fall in? And again, that's the further, longer term, bigger thinking that we need to do with this capital plan. Again, water just went through it, as you know, from the big rate adjustments that we did at town meeting for the 5 years, and those rates were heavily influenced based on the capital needs of the water department and the system. So I don't know what that impact would be here if we had to do a bunch of old clay pipes and how many miles of clay pipes or what the cost would be. But again, just something for you guys and for us to really think about.
I think climate change is something that we have to look at too. We've had situations now with like automatic flooding of proportions that I haven't seen in, 20 or 30 years of closing the streets by the harbor and all this other stuff, which means that there's more water in the marsh that I would think is going to put more downward pressure on the pipes that are in the marsh that can cause them to then leak more that we wouldn't have had happen 10 years ago or 30 years ago. So
Makes sense.
I have one last comment on the budget, and that is, could you just tell me real quick on the debt service? It looks like are we turning the tide on the term? Because it looks like we're going to start paying more principal than interest now. Are we coming to the last 5 years of a note, or where are we?
I don't know specifically which one that is, but yeah, for fiscal 23, 24, up to 26, it increases like 10 grand, 20 grand a year. It's just adjustable based on the debt service schedule. So I'd have to go back and look, but depending on, I did have them in summary level. If they did them based on level debt service versus the principal pay down up front, they could be just scattered throughout the debt schedule. So I don't really have a great answer for you, Paul. I don't know which ones are affecting that. I could look into it though.
Okay, yeah, I'm just curious, what do we know what's going to get paid off and when? Because if we're going to go, so if we go into our capital budget, right, we'll know if some debt service is going to roll off, when does that roll off, and we can help put that into the capital budget plan.
Yes, so I have that. So again, the principal
Okay.
increases and the interest decreases. So
Yeah.
when I send you the updated sewer budget, on the third tab, I have all the debt service laid out. It's not in detail,
Okay.
but it's at the summary level.
That's
So
fine.
you can see in each fiscal year. And then if
Okay,
you want to drill down, I can send you the detail of all the debt. Just
that's
take me a
fine.
minute to sort my schedule and print it for you, but at
Okay.
least you can see where we're at and what years they roll off.
Okay, oh, great, that'd be awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Usually paying more principal down and less interest usually means that the table's turned, or you're getting closer to paying off debt, so.
Yeah, so I will, just because depending on the loans and
Yeah.
I think some
I don't know if
loans
they're-
have been 0% or subsidized. I see Mass Clean Water Trust admin, so a lot of those, depending on what year you did them, they may be low interest, no interest, things like that, so.
Okay,
But yeah, I'll send this to you and then subsequently I'll get that debt service over to you at the detail. But again, on this schedule, tab 3, we'll have all the summary level information for you.
okay. Yeah, so with inflation comes higher interest rates, so I don't know what's variable to us, but I'm sure that'll be making an impact if there are any.
No, nothing's there. We're all fixed. Our debt schedules,
Okay.
we're all fixed as we issue the bond. So the
Okay,
only
oh,
time
good.
it would change is if you did a refunding,
Okay,
which I don't think, because I asked our financial advisors, I don't think any of our bonds are eligible to be refunded anymore,
okay,
just based on certain rules. So, but yeah, so I'm gonna send this over to you right now. I gotta actually get off. I got another one at 11:30, another Zoom. So
super,
unless there's any other questions, I'm gonna jump off and I'll send you these reports in just a minute.
great.
I'm all set, thank you,
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, John.
thanks.
Yep.
Next item, Lisa.
We have 3A Beechwood sewer sleeves across 3A for future sewer expansion discussion.
Yeah, this was something I put in because I had asked Dan to investigate, and I guess I did a little investigating on whether or not when they were rebuilding the section of 3A from North Situate to Beechwood Street, whether or not we would be able to put sleeves under the road should we ever need it in the future, at minimal cost while everything is dug up versus trying to get permission from the state to do something later on. And maybe Dan can give a little idea of the work that was done previously in a couple of cases many years ago on a possible satellite treatment plant somewhere in Beechwood. And I think they found some land that was fairly close to 3A that might work out for a new smaller plant. And so Dan, I didn't call you to tell you that I was going to ask this, but if
That's
you
okay.
comments.
So we actually had a little conversation last time with Brian Joyce, and he felt that the information was available at his office. But back when the train was being reactivated, the quote Greenbush Group, made sure we had sleeves at our request, sewer sleeves and water sleeves at all the major streets and crossings. In case we ever needed to cross the railroad, we wouldn't have to go through an elaborate process. In some cases, I believe the water sleeve, like for instance, at Beechwood was undersized for what they had intended. And I think they requested that they use the sewer sleeve because ours was bigger at Beechwood. And I believe that's what happened. The water department ended up using the sewer sleeve at Beechwood. But the water sleeve should still be there for our use. And certainly if we're looking or talking about a pressure main or something like that, it would probably be ample size. But I don't have that final information, of all the sleeves that were placed during construction. That was all part of the Greenbush Group documentation. And last time we talked, I believe Brian indicated it was in his office. I'm not sure if we actually tasked him to take a look and to get us that information. But, the information obviously should be available, and we need to look at the as-built information to make sure we know what we have, the size, the material, and locations.
Right. Now, one item, we're sort of off a little different than what I'm going to seek, but the water department was able to run a water main from South Main Street up to the houses on 3A. And they had to go under the railroad since it's been built. So I'm assuming that the crossing there must have had a sleeve in it, like you said, trying to put them under everything. So my question was going to be, is there still a sleeve, another sleeve that could be used for sewer if we start designing South Main Street? We've already started designing South Main Street coming down, that was an area that in good likelihood should at least have a stub put up there so that it could be tied into sewer in the future, and have it designed so that it would take those flows.
Yeah, again, they were independent sleeves. They weren't just random sleeves. They were designated for water department, designated for sewer department, and we actually had stipulated, sizes and lengths and locations based upon where our facilities were on either side of the roadway to maintain that 10-foot separation. But we don't have the actual as-built locations for those or what was actually built. I know during the negotiation point, we had requested them at certain locations. But again, I'm looking for as-built information on where those actually are.
Okay. All right, that's number one. Now, what about turning the clock back 10 or 15 years on the possibility of putting a satellite treatment plant to serve either all of Beechwood Street or parts of King Street or something to protect the water supply and stuff like that? What was the sort of the result of that, other than more study has to be done?
Yeah, back when we were doing the satellite study, DEP was kind of in a process of revising their groundwater discharge regs. So that was kind of the main reason it was suspended until they finalized that, and it was just never reactivated. But they changed the methodology on how they approached groundwater discharge, and there were a lot of innovative alternative techniques that we utilized to allow for unusual cases or poor soil conditions. And the big thing was basically the approval by DEP of drip irrigation. And after treatment, you can basically get rid of it through drip irrigation that could be placed in the B horizon of the soils. And you can actually do it for soils, upwards of 60 to 90 minutes per inch as far as perk rates. So it was a big change that would allow some of these soils that are in Cohasset that are very dense, clay, less permeable, to actually be utilized for disposal. The only thing is it is dependent upon large areas. We did look at a couple of areas along, one of the premises was basically to do it in the lower watershed of Bound Brook, because we were withdrawing water from Aaron River in, Bound Brook to the treatment plant. There is basically the 7Q10 of the portions downstream of Bound Brook, were stressed. And we had contemplated in that area downstream of Bound Brook to try to find some lands that were available that could be utilized for drip irrigation. And those are sloping terrains, fairly shallow soils, but still might be feasible to do something in there. We also looked at, a lot of other lots in the area, but the big issue was trying to find land that was of sufficient size for higher flows versus trying to dose multiple fields in different locations. The conservation properties along Beechwood near the railroad tracks was a large area that we had looked at originally before it was actually turned over to the Conservation Trust. That was one area that was basically prime land for disposal. And it still might be, and I'm not sure how, if the Conservation Trust limitations would restrict that at this point in time. That's something that would have to be investigated. But we also, took a general look over into Situate as well. They had a lot of large areas that were available for drip irrigation and, available for disposal. And, one of the premises was potentially servicing that general area with a combined system with Situate and Cohasset. Maybe the treatment plant or something would be placed in Cohasset and the disposal area in Situate, or, vice versa. But in that area there, I'd have to go back and look at all the lots that we examined, but anything from the ball field all the way down to lands behind the shopping malls. There were different areas that still needed to be examined, but the big thing was they were now available for disposal because of the approval by DEP of that drip irrigation systems.
I know that the town of the conservation land along Beechwood Street, I was on the committee that bought the property and then gave it away and sold some of it. But the town ended up with a 5-acre parcel that is not restricted for conservation, and it's at actually the top of the hill behind where the 3 houses were built. So that is something. But I thought there was a place off of Mill Lane that was on that side of the flow to the treatment plant was looked at and seemed favorable.
Yeah, it was looked at. The soils are tight. They're fairly shallow in that area. We'd have to look at it in terms of mounting effect, but it was a very high potential in that it would have some good positive attributes to replenish the stream flow of Bound Brook, and that was deemed as a positive feature because of the 7Q10s were fairly low. So by recharging Bound Brook in that lower section, you're not influencing the water supply, but you're enhancing the water quality in that stream all the way down to the Gulf.
Okay. The other thing that when we went to one of the meetings with Situate and Hull and stuff a couple of years ago, what would a drip type of thing with the proper amount of land cost for 150,000 gallon a day type of plant? At one point,
150,000, I'd say you're probably talking, probably close to about 5 acres.
Yep. And how much money besides land cost would it cost to build the plant?
To build a plant?
Yeah.
The plants you can usually do it for about 2 million. The disposal field for that size system would probably be close to, depending on how much of the geohydro study investigation, money would have to be spent there, but you're probably talking less than or just about another million. So overall, you're talking about 3 million, maybe 3.5 million overall for that type of facility, not including land costs. you know, assuming the land costs are free.
So the agenda item was having sleeves under Beechwood Street going across 3A versus the Beechwood Street that is at South Main Street, or that thing. And then, or putting something across the street. Now, interesting, 2 days ago, I got a phone call from a potential person. They own property on 3A between Stasko's property and Tupelo Road. And he asked me, how can he, what does he have to do to connect onto sewer for his piece of property? And for, actually, he says for his house, but his parcel is a piece of land from King Street where it goes off to 3A. Remember, there's a dog shop up there and some other things, the hospital there and stuff. He owns one of those lots there. And what would someone have to tell someone like that about their possibility of doing anything?
What's in the contract?
It's in
It's in the contract. So any abutters can hook up to the line once it's in, and they would pay the privilege and hookup fee to the town. And according to the contract, CJC gets 50% of it.
How would they get the pipe across the street if the sewer's on the other side of the street?
So at that point, the sewer department would be putting in the line. So
Typically, it would be a private contractor.
Yeah.
They'd have to get approval from the state to connect up and cross the roadway. The best thing is if someone moved forward before the construction was actually implemented, and you could just work it into the contract.
Okay. And we don't know what side of the road he's going to be on all the way to Tupelo Road, do we?
You also
They
have
just
to think about it in terms of the district limits as well.
Excuse
I
me?
don't know where we put reviewing the plans on hold at the moment. So I don't know what the plans that were submitted, what they detailed on 3A.
Well, there are no service connections on the plans right now.
Yeah.
But they're on, but there's.
But Wayne was asking what side of 3A the pipe would be on, but I thought that was already
It varies.
submitted. I know they
I think
it
they
went
go
to
back
D.
and forth a couple of times.
Yeah.
They do, basically twice. They cross the roadway, then cross
Yeah.
back over.
Are we talking 3A or Tupelo?
3A.
Yeah.
Right, going headed to Tupelo. That's
Wayne, you also have to consider, you know, if the lot is in the district or outside the district. If it's outside the district, you're still going to have the same type of situation, just like Cook Estates. You know, unless there's affordable housing, you know, it has to be brought into the district.
okay. But
Even though,
are we going before town meeting? And this never came up, but in making Stasko's property just in the district?
no, because you have that capability because he has the affordable housing component. There's an exemption in there where you can make that decision.
Right. But he also
I
has.
think in the contract, though, it said it was a line extension from Tupelo to CJC. It wasn't a new sewer district. If we make it a new sewer district, then that would be different than what we agreed to.
But
Well-
in the agreement, it says that, you know, he gets a certain percentage of the fees that are collected. But you're saying that no one else can connect.
No, without town meeting approval. Unless it's an affordable housing component that you can approve directly.
Okay, or a public use.
See, you can expand the district for certain things, including affordable housing. And essentially by your approval of that agreement, you've expanded the district to include the CJC property. But the abutters would still need to be brought into the district somehow.
But the loophole is like it's at Chief Justice, that there are separate buildings on separate lots that are also being connected, that we haven't voted to put them in the district. There's one building that has affordable housing, the other two buildings don't. And they're on separate lots.
Yeah, it was presented as a single application. That's,
Right, but there was a state law, I believe, 2011, that said because it's under common ownership and it's contiguous property, it's considered one.
Okay,
So that's the issue that he ran into with the Board of Health to begin with.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
I
So,
mean, it's certainly something you want to consider. I mean, if you have a pipeline that's there and that is available to connect up to, and certainly portion of that is, or most of it is in the Lily Pond watershed, you could put an article before town meeting for expansion of the district, you know, for this area. And it really doesn't involve any major costs on everything. So I would think that would be well received by the town.
okay,
I definitely want to review what the definition is of the district and what are the districts, because I don't believe CJC is in a district. I think it's an extension of the way that the contract was written up, that it was an extension of the existing line, and that it was not in a district, or it wasn't designated as a new district, and such that it says because he's outside of the district, it states that he would have to pay an additional rate, which would be equivalent to the Hull rate times 1.5, because he's out of the district, if something had to be diverted.
That's all true.
So
I
I'm
think.
not sure if we're contradicting ourselves, though, you know what I mean? So that's what I got to figure out. What is the district?
Yeah,
Who's
the
in it, who's
language,
not?
the language, you know, basically defined the district, and basically, I believe the language was, it has to go to town meeting for approval to expand the district unless it meets certain criteria where the sewer commission has the authority to expand the district. And I think that's essentially what we've done, what you've done.
Yeah, so I'm not sure we officially expanded the district to include him, because if that's the case, then he wouldn't pay the 1.5% additional rate if we had to pump.
I don't think that's necessarily true. It's whatever in the negotiated agreement. He's displacing flow that was not originally planned for, you know? And
Right, if we displace it to Hull, he has to pay a higher rate because it says he's out of the district. So if
Yeah,
he's
yes.
in the district, then he doesn't pay the high rate.
I don't think that's the case.
Okay,
Something for Greg, maybe.
yeah, we'll have to take a look at it then.
it's something we've been working on for like 3 or 4 years. And it's,
Yeah, so that's why I say with Cook,
What-
Cook is not a new district. Cook is an extension of the Deer Hill line, which keeps it out of that whole district conversation. Is it a new one? Is it an old one? What is it? And then we did the same thing with CJC. So it was an extension of the line.
Right. I
It
think
wasn't,
the reason why Cook has to go back is because you need to expand, the town meeting needs to expand the district to improve them. That's up to Greg, I guess. to work out.
okay, yeah.
yeah, let them do it. I mean, easy enough. All right. How about moving on to a sewer, Lisa, you're,
The town report.
no.
So I'd like to say thank you for Lisa for doing my homework. I read it and it's fine with me.
As it turned out, it was easier than I thought.
Okay,
To have you as a backup and Wayne as a backup as well.
yeah, no problem. I was gonna get fancy, but that looks perfectly fine.
Okay.
I'm good with it.
Okay,
All right, I am too.
excellent.
So we approve that, the 2021 annual report.
Does this have to be voted on or?
No.
We just did. It doesn't have, we're just recognizing that it's okay.
Okay, perfect. Next, we have a sewer abatement that was included in the packet.
Yes.
So 14 Windy Hill, they installed a pool and they filled the pool. So that water use did not go into the sewer.
Yeah, so I read through that. I'm fine with agreeing to an abatement. If it's calculated correctly, I don't know on the math, if they were looking for $1,400 or something.
Yeah, so they were looking for 13,000 cubic.
Oh,
feet
13,000.
to
Yeah.
be abated, and which equals the $1,359.80. I went and I also included the history of, which they're new. So 14 Windy Hill was a new build.
Mhm.
So I just took the last 3 full usage and calculated it at an average and came up with 1335.32.
Oh, what do you think? Paul?
Yeah, I mean, if they use all of that water just to fill the pool, I would agree with them. It shouldn't be taxed as sewer. I'm just kind of surprised at the amount. I'm just questioning the amount. It was
How many
quite
gallons?
large.
How many gallons was it?
7,000 gallons,
7,000?
97,000 gallons.
So something doesn't make sense. I don't know how much a pool holds, but
How can that be?
yeah, something doesn't.
Usually
That's why I
it's
say the math, the request makes sense, but the math doesn't.
What is the physical size of that? We know how many cubic feet, so if we multiply the cubic feet, how
Like
much?
13,000 cubic feet times 7.48 roughly.
So how big a structure do you need to fit that? If a pool is 20 by 40 and it's 8 feet deep,
So if you have an 18 foot by 36 foot pool
Mhm.
with a 5 foot average depth, it's about 24,000 gallons.
and they use twice that, right? How many?
Worst case, if it's a 20 foot by 40 foot pool with average depth of 5 feet, it's 30,000 gallons. And you're saying it's 97,000, Dan?
97,000, which would be, if you want a 6 foot deep, 21 feet wide, 100 feet long. You know, it's
That's
basically,
That's an Olympic pool, isn't it?
yeah, that's a great pool.
This is on Sawyer Street. Is this the Bancroft pool, or
No, it's on Windy Hill.
I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
you're joking. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm a little slow. Sorry.
It's huge.
But that's based on what their water bill was.
Yeah, I would contact the water department to kind of figure out how did they not notice they pumped in 97,000 gallons somewhere? Because if the average pool is going to hold 30,000, how big the pool is, but yeah, it's
Do you get your math right? Because if you use the cubic feet and then you use the cubic feet to determine how many cubic feet you had, right?
Yeah, 13,000.
so if we go,
13,000 cubic feet.
the only thing that gets, if you had a 30 foot by 50 foot pool built in, it would be 67,000 gallons with a 6 foot average depth, according to Google. So, yeah, I would like to double check the math with the water department and ask the homeowner the size of the pool.
Mhm.
I mean,
You know,
did they fill it? Did they fill it and
reasonable-
drain it? Did they fill it and drain it and have to fill it again? You know,
Maybe. Sounds like, 50% of that value would probably be more appropriate.
Yeah.
That's still a good sized pool.
However, if it's a new pool and they were just building the pool, they're going to be using water to do the pool, to build the pool. Right?
yeah, I
No, but they
the
come in.
math doesn't make sense to me. I don't, unless they filled it twice. Even if in construction they used water, they do. You're talking about 97,000 gallons of water. That's a lot of water. So if we can check with the water department to see if that's accurate, and then check the homeowner to see what the capacity of the pool is, and ask them if they filled it twice or what they did.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Add them to the next agenda.
Yeah, because even some of the largest pool calculations online, the biggest one I could find is 67,000 gallons.
I don't mind taking the 1335 and cutting it in half and giving 50%. Or something like that. Right, so
And close it.
in other words, I don't want to spend forever to do something that someone should have known that well, it's going through the water meter, but that's how you measure sewer. They had gotten several sewer bills before.
So that would be like 660, 750.
Yeah,
You want to make a motion?
yeah, I make a motion that we pay half of the overage and because we think that we think that it's, well, I don't know, see, if the water goes through the meter, it's metered.
I mean, you can give the opportunity to respond. Just seems like a lot of water.
Yeah, so ask them to explain how they use 97,000 gallons in it. But it doesn't, thing is, if it went through the meter,
If the pool only holds 30,000 gallons, then it's a third, right?
right, but what else would they have used the water for?
Yeah.
Whether they ran it over, whether they filled the pool twice, it might filled it up and they had all the crud in it and stuff, they pumped it out and they filled it back up. Still,
Irrigation, new home, new plantings, maybe?
yeah, but that's,
That could be. If it's, is that a new home?
It's a new home, yes.
Could
I'm
be
gonna-
irrigation.
I check quickly to see if they have a irrigation meter. One moment.
But in any case, it did, even with irrigation, it didn't go in the sewer.
Well, if they drained it, then there's a percentage of that is I&I, right?
I don't know if they put it through the grinder pump.
You know, the water had to go somewhere.
No, it doesn't look like they have an irrigation meter.
Could be the drain in the front.
Yeah,
Refill
but
it,
if they-
so it's fine.
Yeah, if they filled it twice, that means they emptied it once and it went somewhere.
Well, I'll ask them and well, I'll add it to the agenda for next time to make a motion on it.
Okay. Yeah, it's just odd enough to be. We've had people who had a crack in their pool. We've had people who left the sprinkler on while they're on vacation. So those were all $500 abatement requests, They weren't $13,000 abatement requests.
Or 1,300, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of water.
you go up and take a look, Lisa. Check out the size of it. And the only other thing is maybe they got a little slop sink in the basement that they run water through or something else. I mean,
I know our little pool, we have to order water because we can't use Situate water. They don't allow it during the drought season. So I don't even think we used a full truckload.
yeah, but it's 5,000 gallons, I think, or something, or 8,000 gallons in the tractor trail that Dalton has. That's
9,000.
Yeah.
Huh? maybe 10,000 gallons. I don't know, but not,
I think typically about 9,000 are the large ones.
okay, so 9,000.
Mm.
You don't put in 10 trailer loads.
Yeah. All right, so the next thing on the agenda is other business. So what I had for that was that, and I included it in the packet, was the email from Michael regarding the Mass Grant Works. I don't have it. Michael Skinner regarding the Mass Energy Grant. I guess that's opening on today. And it'll be open for 4 to 6 weeks. I don't know if, I know this was brought up in prior meetings, but did we have anything to add to this?
We went, at the one point in time, we talked about doing things with variable speed drives on the pumps. And I don't know how many other things that might be covered in this. Trying to look it up here. And do we need any of these things? RAS pump replacements, permeate pump resizing, aeration, lighting upgrades, effluent pump replacement.
Yeah, I mean, they've already really done the lighting upgrades already, I believe. And the RAS pumps, the submersible pumps are tough to get high efficiency motors for. These pumps have a pretty low wire to water efficiency, and there's not too much you can do about that. Some of them, depending on their size, can be put on VFDs, which does help.
Mhm.
So, I mean, and some of the VFDs we have at the plant are fairly old. Only a couple have been replaced. So there's a possibility where VFD upgrade could help get a little bit more efficiency.
Mhm.
The big things are really the blowers. And it all depends on how much they're being utilized. Currently, they're across the line and running, 24/7. But if we are able to dial back the aeration a bit, VFDs may help on that regard. And those are such big horsepower motors that could help. Permeate pumps, we already have VFDs on. I think there was a water booster in there too. It's fairly small horsepower. The effluent pumps are submersibles. Well, actually, they're so we're really not going to get a lot of increased efficiency with those. The big thing, I think, is basically putting VFDs on the blowers and trying to utilize the blowers a little bit more efficiently. That's your big cost item.
Mhm.
Certainly that can help. I noticed in the old report, they didn't really mention the heating in the building or the ventilation. But I think those are areas for expansion. The heating currently is basically a combination. It's gas fired, but it does have a blower. There may be some potential to increase efficiency for those two, especially the ventilation.
Yeah, I think that came up recently too, from the plant. I think that we should just proceed and put back, tell Michelle Leary that we want to, we want her to apply and get us some money.
Yeah, I mean, part of that email was basically automatic dissolved oxygen probes. A lot of times they have a high maintenance aspect to them, but if you were operating the blowers based upon dissolved oxygen levels, you might be able to get increased efficiency there as well.
Mhm.
Because that will indicate when you need more oxygen versus less oxygen. So that working in conjunction with VFDs on the blowers is a good combination. I think that's really the mechanism that you're gonna have to try to save the most, you know, short of putting panels on the roof or something like that, you know.
Yeah. But we started to come up with, we're about to spend $300,000 for electricity. And it was, you know, $100,000, $10,000 a month, just 2 or 3 years ago. So and it seems like we put things into effect that should have even cut it down, like lighting and stuff. But
Yeah, the new membranes, you know, basically they are new membranes, but they have proven to need more oxygenation
Mhm.
to get the efficiency that we need out of the membranes. We get more capacity, but that, you know, it's sacrificed by needing more oxygen and more aeration. So that's been a little bit of a drawback. We thought we'd be trying to save some money. It turns out that, you know, from an effective use of the membranes, we're not. We're actually using a little bit more energy. So
I know we had a alternative energy till we remember we signed up last month or the month before with her. That's supposed to save us money sometime.
yeah, 10,000 a year or something. But
Yeah, I forget what it was. Yeah,
but it's gone up so much more than what I mean.
it's going up more than we can save.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
So-
I mean, I think there's areas for improvement. The big thing again is the blowers, you know?
Yeah.
And some of those are getting fairly old at this point in time too. So, you know, we may be able to find a more efficient blower, but they're also big dollars, so.
we did a spreadsheet, and I don't know if you got it, Dan, of our electricity use. And what was interesting is what it cost us in each of the pump stations and stuff like that. You know, so that
No, I didn't see that.
they add up. You know, it's just I don't know. Did you get that, Paul, or no? This is
What's that?
a 2-page electricity consumption that we did, that Lisa did.
I didn't receive. Well, if I received it, I didn't read it. I haven't looked at the electricity consumption. I know that was the biggest part of our budget.
Did it spike in the
And,
winter?
Excuse me?
Did it spike in the winter? Sorry.
Yeah, well, that storm that we had in October really increased one of the accounts at the wastewater treatment plant because it was running the generator like a week.
If you were on the generator, it should have reduced the amount.
Yeah, generators running on diesel.
I might be thinking, yeah, so I don't know what it was, but that's what it was due to. It was due to the electrical outage.
Not following
And
that
I
one.
sent this.
That's wrong. Unless it's you, because that's natural gas.
Yeah,
Unless you have it under utilities, and maybe gas and electric are combined. Because they're both under National Grid now.
yeah.
Maybe that's it. Then that would make sense.
Do you get gas bills, Lisa?
I get gas bills. I get gas bills, yes.
Okay, so is the gas bill, did any of that money go into the electric bill area?
Yeah, hang on one second. Let me take a look.
Utilities include both.
I actually have that up on my other screen.
Yeah, on the budget, we just have one line item for utilities. We don't show breakout between gas and electric.
Right, it includes both.
Oh, yeah, that's what I figured out.
Yeah. So let's see.
You really need to separate those, I think, to get a good feel for what you're doing.
My spreadsheet does separate everything.
Okay.
It's each bill, the pump stations. It was at the pump station, December and January were huge. Let me see which
For
one.
electricity or gas?
That was electric.
That would be electric because that would mean the pumps are running. No, we did have a storm surge. I remember
So it was
2 months max.
I think it was the floodgate generator. on one of the accounts was huge in December. Let me just see this here.
Most of these pump stations also have small unit heaters as well. You know,
Yeah,
just
they are.
curious.
Well, they're the unit heaters are heating the generators.
Enclosure.
Yeah.
They're actually heating the Gorman Rupp enclosures.
Right, and also a battery charger.
Yep. You'd have a jacket heater and a battery charger running on the generator.
So it looks like Border Street and Holly Lane, electric poles are really high. Yeah, let me see if I can point out which email it was that, do you remember which email it came in through, Wayne? What date?
For which? For the print that you gave me the other day?
On the, oh, did I give you, oh, I gave you a printout. Oh, okay, I thought I sent it, I think I sent it maybe to somebody else then.
Oh, maybe it sent it also. Well, we can find it because I don't want to take the meeting too much.
Okay, yeah, and I can resend it. So you can analyze the electric and gas.
Okay.
You send it to me too, Lisa?
Pardon me?
You send it to me too?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I can't find it right now.
Okay. I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Just had one more quick question.
Sure.
You have the II report that's due at the end of March. I don't know if that's being worked on at all. If you want me to work on it, or Woodland Currents working on it, I don't know. As part of the permit. Is
Let me
that-
talk to Brian, because I was talking to him briefly about that. The other day, but he was on vacation all last week. I report is due. Okay, let me talk to Brian about that.
Yeah, I have a contract item for it, but I think last year you had Woodland and Curran do it. But this year you also have the flow data, the collection system.
Yeah, and
It really needs to be incorporated into that. So I don't have access to that. I've asked a couple of times for access, but I don't have access to that information. So, but it's important information in terms of responding to the annual report. I think.
Okay, so II report is due, and that includes the floodgate, you said, floodgate?
No, I didn't say that.
No,
Oh,
just-
The other thing is, we also have to
Say-
do,
I'm sorry, what did you say that had to be incorporated into the II report?
the flow meter.
Flow
Flow
meter.
meter data, the 3 flow meters we have.
Yep.
I've been trying to get copies of the information, or at least access. I think you can log in and actually look at the meters. But I had asked Scott for it, and I haven't got any access. I don't think I'm gonna. So,
Yeah, I just have asked Scott to send you the analysis of the flow meters to date.
okay.
And how did you hurt your head?
Oh, that's a little skin treatment for the Irish skin. Sorry.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
goes away in about a week.
All right.
So do you want me to second the motion?
Yes.
Okay, so comment is over. All right. Paul Kear, second.
Wayne Sawchuck, third. Wayne Sawchuck.
Wayne Sawchuck, aye. Paul Kear, aye. Yep.
Yes, that'll do.
And our next meeting is what? The 8th?
Oh, yeah, so the next meeting will be Tuesday, the 8th, yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Thank
Lisa,
you.
if you could go ahead and forward Greg's contact information so I can give him a call.
Oh, sure.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, have a good
All right.
day.
Take care now. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.